So Fox News is personally attacking White House Press Secretary Karine Jean-Pierre. Let's talk about it in today's video. Hi, I'm Mike Greiner. I'm a lifelong Democratic activist who's concerned about the direction our country is taking. I'm also a lawyer and an academic, and I'm here to help you stand up to the BS of the MAGA crowd. So Jen Psaki was a superstar, and there's no doubt that Karine Jean-Pierre had big shoes to fill when she took the job of White House press secretary, but I think she's done, in general, a pretty good job. Guess who disagrees with me? That would be Fox News. Let's check it out in this video.
I don't have any update for you on that. It's a very good question. I don't have an update on that.
I know it's not an easy job. Sarah Huckabee Sanders is a former White House.
Okay, let's start with the fact that they had to edit together a couple examples of her saying that she didn't have information on something, which is probably a good thing. Much better than just lying the way that Sarah Huckabee Sanders would typically do when she was press secretary. Let's see what else they have to say here.
House press secretary, Arkansas Republican gubernatorial candidate now, and looks to be shoo-in to be the next governor. Sarah, great to see you. Your take on what we've seen so far, because Jen Psaki, by all accounts, I think you'd agree, did a great job.
Yeah, I mean, Psaki had a terrible story to tell because...
Boy, look how hard it is for Sarah Huckabee Sanders to actually have to admit that Jen Psaki did a great job. Let's keep watching.
Every single thing that the Biden administration touches, they screw up, so she didn't...
Wait, every single thing the Biden administration touches, it screws up? Isn't this the administration that passed the Infrastructure Act that her administration was unable to pass? Or that passed a COVID relief bill? Or that passed protection for service members who were suffering? Or that passed a climate change bill that has been pending for years and that has seen record jobs growth? That's the administration that destroys everything it touches?
Exactly have great information to go out there, but she was at least capable of stringing those bad stories together in complete sentences. Right now, not only do they not have an update, they don't have any useful, meaningful information that they're sharing with the American people. I don't frankly blame her too much because, like I said,
again, at least she tells the truth, unlike Sarah Huckabee Sanders, who's an admitted liar. And by the way, as evidence of everything I'm saying, I'm going to post links to the articles down below that you can check out yourselves. Let's keep watching.
The things that are happening within the Biden administration, it's not exactly something you want to go out and have to sell. When they're saying that, you know, people aren't just coming across the border, when anyone with eyes can see.
Now, here's kind of the catch-22 this administration finds itself in. It's relentlessly attacked for the chaos on the borders. What's the evidence that they use for the chaos on the borders? Well, the fact that the administration is arresting so many people at the border. But the administration is arresting so many people at the border, obviously doing a good job protecting the border. Or what's going on here? This is Fox News at its best. Try to have things both ways. Let's keep watching.
That we have an absolute national security and humanitarian crisis taking place at our border. It's absolute divorce from reality that...
Coming from the representative of the administration that put children in cages at the border. Let's keep watching.
They're living in this fantasy land that these things aren't taking place. This America Last agenda that they're trying to inject into our country has no place, and it's one of the reasons we've come to count on so many of our nation's governors to step up, prevent the lawlessness, prevent the crime, and start taking steps to actually make changes.
America Last agenda. As I recall, this administration is actually the one that gave something to the middle class, not just to the very rich or overseas investors. Let's keep watching.
For example, election integrity. What governor doesn't want that? And if to do that, I think, and most Americans think, you need a voter ID. I didn't know that was racist. Watch.
The right to vote is being suppressed. It's being curtailed. It's being shaved off. In my own state, they are going to attempt to pass a constitutional amendment, making sure that universal voting ID for every time you vote, not just when you sign up to vote, but every time you vote, because they understand that at any given time, there's tens of thousands of Pennsylvanians who typically are on the poorer side and are people of color that are less likely to have their ID at any one given time.
So socialist Senator.
Okay, let's start with one point here, which is that John Fetterman's the guy who, in another video, they were saying was unable to put together a sentence because of the fact that he'd had a stroke. He's pretty articulate there, if you ask me. But beyond that, I think there are lots of policies that the Republicans have been pursuing that are aimed at trying to disenfranchise the poor and minority voters. Examples include trying to do away with mail-in ballots, something that's been shown to increase participation. And I think John Fetterman, frankly, does a pretty good job of explaining why requiring voter IDs is something that actually falls disproportionately on the poor and minorities. Let's keep watching.
Gubernatorial candidate, former Lieutenant Governor Fetterman, says an ID. I mean, what an insult to say that working class people can't carry identification, or minorities.
It's crazy. You can't board a plane. You can't return a package without a photo ID.
Okay, let's talk about the difference between voting and those two things that Sarah Huckabee Sanders mentioned, which is that voting's a right. It's not just a right, it's a responsibility here in America. That's not the case with returning a package. That's not the case with boarding a plane. Those things are privileges, which, yes, you can be required to have an ID for. Same thing for driving, for example. But voting is something different. It's something that is both expected and allowed of all citizens, no matter what. And we're supposed to try to make it easier for people to vote, not harder. Let's keep watching.
In most places in this country, it's absurd to think that asking people to identify who they are is somehow a criticism of them. I mean, it is absolutely insane, but we know what it's about, Brian. This is a total push for absolute control by the Democrat Party.
Yes, that's right. It's an absolute push for total control by the Democratic Party. We're trying to make sure that as many people vote as possible. That's really what they're afraid of. Let's keep watching.
Know that they have a better chance if they allow anybody who shouldn't be voting to show up and vote. They want to make it easy.
Now, here's the thing. They keep bringing up these people who shouldn't be voting, and yet all these investigations, including investigations down in Florida, by the way, by DeSantis, when he had this big press conference talking about the arrests that were being done by his election police that he's created, that as we find out the details about that, in virtually every case, there are people where there was just some confusion, both on the side of the government and of the individual. Certainly there was no intent to violate the law. And what's more is most of the people who violate the law are Republicans, voting Republicans. So where's all this voter fraud that we're constantly hearing about? Let's keep watching.
Easy to cheat, harder to vote, and that's the opposite of what we want to see happen. And we have got to push back. And again, it's another reason you're seeing so much enthusiasm, I think, come out around the country for a red wave in November.
Well, she's a favorite to be the next governor of Arkansas. Sarah Huckabee Sanders, always great. Thank you.
I have no doubt that Sarah Huckabee Sanders is the favorite to be elected governor of Arkansas. I mean, after all, Arkansas is a Republican state. She's won the Republican primary. She's got the backing of former President Donald Trump, and we know what his word means in Republican circles. But what's more is she's the daughter of a former governor. So should we be surprised about the fact that she's leading in the race to be elected governor of Arkansas? Well, the sad truth is that Sarah Huckabee Sanders has one of the most embarrassing records as press secretary for her constant lying. And I find it interesting how quickly they pivoted in this interview from talking about Karine Jean-Pierre, who's doing a decent job in a very tough position, to talking about the border, to talking about voting rights. It's like with Fox News, when you're watching it, they're just trying to throw all the crap up on the wall that they can to see what sticks. And that's another example of what we saw in this video here. Well, speaking of the media, why don't you check out this other video over here that I did a little while ago about the Republican plan to use their control of the Supreme Court basically to silence the media and do away with the First Amendment. Why don't you check that out? I'll see you then. In the meantime, let's hope for continued progress. Thank you.